good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be joining us from. Thank you for being here. This is the Telerik R2 2023 release webinar, and we are delighted to have you here. It's going to be a lot of fun trying to unpack everything that we just put together in the latest release. All right, so to start things off, quick introductions. I am Sam Basu, and with me I have my good friend Ed. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Sam?
I'm not too bad. So what you see here are our social handles on most of the usual places, Twitter, Mastodon, GitHub, all the usual places. We are both dev advocates and we work on the .NET side of the family. While we only see and hear the two of us, we do have a small army of folks supporting us, and these are the same engineers and the PMs and the exceptional folks who bring you the release. So we stand on the shoulder of giants. So this is your opportunity to ask them any questions and get the most out of this release as we go forward. So this is our second big release of the year, and our folks have been super busy trying to pack everything we can to make you more productive. So let's dive in. We are all about your success. You have timelines, you're running your business, you have customers who depend on you. We are here to enable your productivity, to get you to be a little bit more successful. We do a lot of things across the board between .NET and JavaScript and productivity tools. Today, we're going to focus mostly on the .NET side of things. And this release, we actually do have a theme. We have a theme every release. I actually particularly like what we have this time around. You can see the focus areas this release. Like, we are all about digital experiences, and performance is big on our minds. So is adaptability, giving you the flexibility to go cross-platform, giving you efficient ways to style and customize your apps, and newer high-value UI components that help you light up your apps and ship your apps faster and be able to trust a team of folks who you can depend on for anything that you need support-wise. We are here for you. So this time around, things are a little back-to-back for us because it's getting into summer. So June 7th, which was actually just yesterday, we had our R2 release drop. So a lot of you already use Telerik and Kenda UI and Fiddler and other products from us. Thank you for your patronage. If you're new to the family, it's a big portfolio. We're going to try to break it down, but those bits that we are going to talk about today, all of them are live. So you can try out all of the things that Ed and me talk about today. We did a live stream yesterday right as the bits were coming out. So if you are ever wanting to just come on, hang out with us, see us fail while we're coding, come and join us on Twitch. So we did a live stream yesterday that was fun with lots of interactivity, but we want to take it take the time to formally break down all of the UI components and all of the goodness that we have in this release. So this is today, Thursday, June 8th, and we're going to talk all things .NET across web, desktop, and mobile. And you're going to see, whatever be your technology stack on .NET, we are here to enable your success. So we're going to talk about all things web. Ed is our resident web expert. We have some really exciting things going on, but also on mobile and desktop for your native cross-platform apps. We are here to enable your success. Coming up tomorrow, for all of you who do JavaScript, that's Kenda UI for us, and you're going to see Kenda UI in a variety of frameworks and different types of patterns of how you render the UI. We want to step back and let you choose your framework of choice and still be able to render all of our components across Angular, jQuery, React, or Vue. We have some really good things that we have done on the design front because modern web applications need to have a design system, and maybe that stretches across to mobile and desktop as well. We have some solid docs. We have a lot of integration with Figma and other things to enable that designer developer synergy to work that much better. So that's coming up on Friday. And then we come back on Monday of next week, where we talk about all things productivity. This is what keeps your enterprise workflows going. So your reporting solutions, your mocking frameworks, and your network debugging, you should never be in doubt. So we'll talk about all of that coming up next Monday. So 3 webinars where we try to unpack everything that our engineers did this last few months. All right, so Like I said, R2 2023, the release is out, right? So maybe you have DevCraft, which is our bundle of all the products for .NET and JavaScript, or maybe you're using just one, but it doesn't hurt to take a look as to what's new in just your product and also what's new in some of the other ones. Maybe you're not using it. Maybe you already have DevCraft, and maybe this opens your mind to, oh, I can also leverage reporting. I can, use web and mobile and desktop kind of together. And we'll talk about, a lot of the, some of the situations today. So all of those details, all of the product teams take the time to write up what's new. So blogs.telerik.com, that's where all of the details are. And you're watching this here live with us, hopefully. And if you're watching this on a recording, good for you. But if anything happens during the meeting where you have to run, don't worry. We are recording this in high def, and we'll put this up on YouTube as soon as we can. Now, this is also your time. We are delighted that you're spending 2 hours of your day with us. We are here to unpack everything that we did, but it's also your time to ask questions. There is a Q&A panel in the corner of your webinar window. Ask questions, and we're here to answer. There are some questions where Ed and me can read out the questions live and try to address it for everybody. But if you are on the social medias, use the hashtag Hey Telerik, so we can have a breadcrumb and we can get back to you even after the webinar. However you use our bits, you're going to see those things pop up, maybe on your NuGet packages, maybe new installers, maybe on your control panel. Go get the bits. That's how you can see everything that we do light up.
Yeah, so Microsoft's done a fantastic job over the last couple versions of .NET to kind of unify everything into one platform, so you can build pretty much anything with .NET these days. Whether it's IoT, AI with ML.NET, gaming with Unity, web, desktop, and mobile with MAUI, or in the cloud with Azure. And of course, all of these things get consolidated down into our tools and ecosystems that we have as well. So whether using Visual Studio Code, the command line, one of your favorite text editors, everything works right there inside of your IDE. And it doesn't leave out any platforms. You can build apps that run on Mac, you can build apps that run on Linux, and you can build apps with Mac and Linux as well as Windows that run everywhere.
Yeah, well said. I think the modern .NET is slow, flexible. It is a unified stack that lets you target just about every type of platform. And you're going to see us, catering to web and mobile and desktop quite heavily. And you can see where we can, share code. We want you to be able to choose where you want to be. If you're on .NET Framework, that's fine. You are on Windows, and it's going to be supported forever. But all of the modern .NETs, we are on .NET 6 and 7, and .NET 8 is cooking. You're going to see us be on the bleeding edge. If you want to be, we are right there with you. So you're going to see our desktop and mobile things start working on .NET 8 come November. So we are right there with you. Whichever .NET you choose, we are here to enable your productivity.
And we have deep integration into the editors as well. So we have tools for Visual Studio Code that help you scaffold pages, applications, you name it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's, kind of before we jump into this, just 2 quick links here to note. We genuinely care about your experience. We are developers, and we do not want you to spend your cycles or struggle. Talk to us. Like if you are having any issues, first thing is go check out the docs. Our team spent a lot of time trying to get the docs exactly right, so we can cater to your experiences. You can get up and running quickly. And if you are, wanting to just see how to do this particular control work in this scenario, check out the demos. There are some really cool things that our teams build, trying to showcase how to use our controls. And then if you do see something that's an issue, talk to us. We have support systems. We have, our feedback portal. We, genuinely read everything that comes through. So tell us about what you're wanting to build next. If you're missing anything, we would love to be able to have the conversation so we can, plan it for the upcoming releases.
It looks like we're already getting questions about Blazor Hybrid versus MAUI. We'll try to address those as we go. We're planning some special streams just for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we jump into all the cool, desktop and mobile stuff that I talk about, Ed loves to start with the web, and that's ubiquitous. I get it. So Ed, why don't you take it away?
All right, and as we get into this, Sam, I'm already seeing some questions about the CSP, which is a security policy. We have some updates regarding that, so I think you'll be pleased to see the results from that. And let's see if I can get my screen share going. There we are. All right, so I always like to start with the most, the oldest of the bunch, the AJAX, the thing that we've been building apps with for nearly 20 years. I always give it the first go, and then we move on to some of the newer stuff. So we'll talk about ASP.NET Core and MVC. I like to bundle those together because for the most part, we have features on parity with MVC and Core. The only thing that you might get with Core that you don't get with MVC is some of the tag helpers or the tag helpers. You don't get tag helpers in .NET Framework, but you get those with .NET Core. That's usually the main differentiator between those two. Then we'll move on to Blazor. We'll talk a little bit about our efforts with Blazor Hybrid, and I'll chat a little bit about ThemeBuilder and what we've been doing in that space as well. First thing is we have some new components with Telerik UI for ASP.NET AJAX. We have updated or added some new charts to our existing offerings here. So we have an arc gauge and a circular gauge component. Those are interesting. We'll take a look at some demos in just a minute. And then we have our rad gauge, which got multiple improvements. As far as customization, you can change things like your pointer size, the border margin, all of that within the gauge area. And then we have some other updates with our components as far as single line entry properties and autocomplete, and an integration demo with rad editor and rad signature that we'll take a look at. Oops, I think I got a duplicate slide there. We'll move on to just a little housekeeping, and then we'll take a look at some demos. We have some end of support coming up for .NET 3.5 and 4.0 after this release, and that's because support is running out from Microsoft on those versions. So after Service Pack 1 on release 2023, we will be moving on to newer versions of .NET only for support. So .NET 4.5 through .NET 4.8. So keep your eye out for that. So let's jump into the browser real quick here and take a look at some of our AJAX components that were added in this release. We've got our brand new circular gauge, and of course these things are fully customizable, as most of our components usually are. So you got your control panel down at the bottom where you could play around with some of these settings, as well as change the values of that circular gauge. These are really nice components to put in reporting applications. Maybe you're doing a fitness app, something like that. They look really nice. And then we have the arc gauge, which is like the half version of the circular gauge. We also have the ability to change color ranges in these as well. I think this is a really great demo, Sam. As you scale these down, you can see them either heat up or cool off. Again, like if you're doing anything in like the manufacturing space, you've got machines that are reporting data. Maybe you've got some thresholds that you're meeting that you want to give off some kind of warning to, etc. These are really great components for that. And then we have a new demo up on the AJAX site that integrates the new signature component that shipped in the last release. The signature component, we can trigger that up on screen here by clicking the edit button, and then I can put my little scribble on here, and then I can hit store on server as a PNG and insert, and this is actually going to embed the graphic right there inside of my Telerik editor. Now, think for a second, Sam, of all the document processing library stuff that we have as well. You go ahead and add that to the mix, and you've got a full experience where you can create documents, have somebody sign it, store that as a PDF, email those things out, do automation, all that sort of thing. Pretty cool stuff. move on to ASP.NET Core and MVC now. We're really excited about what Microsoft is doing with the .NET 8 stuff. They are now working on the previews for .NET 8. .NET 8 Preview 4 just released this May, and we're trying to ship side by side with them and continue to support all of the previews as they come out. So you see some really great performance improvements with .NET Core and Blazor in this next release. And of course, we still continue to support .NET 7 and .NET 8 as those things progress.
So Ed, just a quick note, our good friend Eric Johansson in the chat room was commenting the fact that we are still supporting things for AJAX and .NET Framework, because I think
absolutely
that's the reality for so many enterprises. While we want to be on the bleeding edge whenever you are ready, it doesn't mean we let go of what the reality might be for you.
Sam mentioned early on as well that we are focused on mobility and adaptability to different device sizes. So one of the new features in MVC and Core is our nice compact grid feature. So you can fit more information inside of the same grid space. So if you're looking at information on a smaller screen, this is going to help you get all that data on the screen for the user. We also have adjustable row sizes as well, so you can drag and move those row sizes around as well. We've always kind of had the resizable columns, but now rows too. So that's a nice way to customize the grid there. Adaptive rendering also for many of the components. And I'll show a demo of what adaptive rendering is in just a moment, so you can get a good visualization of what this is. So what we do is we detect the screen size for many of the components that you see here. Autocompletes, drop downs, things like that, they're really intuitive when they're on a desktop, but maybe not so much when they're on mobile. So what we'll do is check and see if you're on a small screen size, and then we'll adapt that component and render it differently so it works better with touch interface and adapts to the smaller screen real estate that you have that you're working with on a phone or a tablet. And this is just the beginning. There's a nice list of components here, but we'll be adding more adaptive rendering to other components in future releases as well. So this is starting to get into the question that John was asking in chat. We have some new content security policy compliance features that are coming or are released in this update. So one of the things that we did is added SVG icon support, and the SVG icon supports remove one of the scripts that you need to import the font icons. So as we move to SVG icons, this helps with our CSP initiative and removes one of those external dependencies that we used to have. They also look great, they scale well, they're easy to color, so we get a lot of benefits from SVG icons as we move on to them.
Yeah, the native world, Ed, of desktop and mobile, we are all in for SVGs because it scales so nicely across different resolutions. But I see the point. The cross-site scripting thing is what we're cutting down on.
Yeah, they look absolutely fantastic as well. And it's kind of a win-win when you get a security bonus out of it too. Speaking of CSP, so enabling this CSP or strict CSP mode in your web applications helps prevent hackers from doing HTML injection attacks on your browser and putting malicious scripts in place. Sounds like we might have somebody that came off mute. Make sure you hit your mute, folks. So the CSP prevents, malicious activity on your application, phishing, that sort of thing as well. And a lot of government agencies and big businesses are using this strict mode to ensure that these injection attacks are minimalized. So we are looking at being completely strict compliance by release 3. And we're doing things now to get the components ready for that strict compliance. One of the things that we added in this release with in respect to CSP is our new template component. So this is a safe method to do templating that is in compliance with that CSP compliance. So we have the add component method on HTML helpers and the add HTML method. So you can either add a full Telerik component or an HTML fragment safely within those CSP guidelines. So that is a major improvement that is going to help folks with that compliance issue. We'll show some additional demos there too, so you can see what that code looks like in just a moment. We've got some chart enhancements. So our stock chart has position, navigation, and label elements that you can customize. Date and time pickers got UX enhancements. So you've got better and easier user interfaces for people to pick dates, calendar items, times, etc. And they're more customizable as well. Another UX improvement is with the Gantt component. So the editor for the Gantt component, that's a very complex dialog that pops up with lots of form elements. So those have been organized into tabs for easier editing. Everything's nice and easy to find and well organized now. And of course, you can fine tune all of these things. They're completely customizable within the component itself. So let's take a look at some of these live in the browser and see what they offer. So here's the Gantt component I was just talking about. Again, you can see that we've got everything put under their respective tabs, which is nice. So if you're in your Gantt chart and you say double click on one of your items, that dialog comes up. Everything's nice and easy to find. And of course, we're using our date pickers in there. All of those improvements that you see on the input components that we've received get applied to these as well. So we have a nice UX for our Gantt chart updated in this release. I talked about CSP compliance and the new templates, and we have a template demo selection here if you want to check out how to integrate those with various components, whether it's the grid, tile layout, scheduler, or just check out the code in general and see how these are wired up. You can jump right into the code base here. And this is the tag helper version of it. Let me look at the HTML helper first. And we can see we're the new add HTML. This is a new safe template, CSP safe template method that we can use. We also have add component here. So if we want to add a component, we can do that as well. And those get injected into the component rendering safely. With tag helpers, things are wired up just slightly different. There's a new syntax here. So if we have a component, so this is a Kendo list view component, we want to define a template for that with the new CSP safe templates. We can say the name of the component dash template, and everything inside of this is safely embedded in the output. So again, that's a big improvement. Hope that helps. John, if you have additional questions, please feel free to ask them in chat. Our engineers are here to see what you need for your applications. And there's always the feedback portal as well at feedback.telerik.com. And that helps us organize issues, upvote them, and see what our customers' needs are so we can prioritize things for the release. I'll talk a little bit about mobility now. We've got our grid with the sizing options. And you can see here side by side our high density grid versus the regular grid. And you can see we fit a lot more information on this compact grid. And you can easily set this up by setting the size of your grid here. Here's the API for it. If you set the size to small, you're going to get that nice compact grid. We can look at that in HTML helpers as well. Right here, you can see we've got a size of component small. That's going to enable your compact grid. So that's a quick and easy fix if you want to add that functionality to your application. The next one, I'm going to jump this one off to our Telerik REPL for ASP.NET Core, so we could see this one. There's a demo up on the website as well. I think it's just a little bit easier to see in an isolated view like this. If we look at our date picker here, we've got a nice drop down that's easy to select with a mouse, and this is great for desktop use. But if we bring this window down a bit, shrink it down to what a mobile device would be, and click on that icon again, we have a nice touch interface that comes up, so we can easily navigate this on mobile. So if you have an application that's doing responsive web, you've got users that are on tablets or mobile devices accessing your app, this is a great way to improve that UX for them. It's just to enable this adaptive mode. And you can see the line of code that controls that here. If you want to enable it, set adaptive mode to auto, and it will automatically detect that screen size and adapt the component rendering for you. And our date editors, they've gotten updates as well, and things are just easier to use, better UX. We also have a lot of customization here as well. If you look at the date input here, we've got so many ways to help customize these date inputs. Sam, you and I are starting to get up there in age, and whenever I go to a website and ask me to select my birthday, like I always cringe a little bit because there's usually a mystery meat solution that somebody's cooked up for selecting your date from a website, especially for age. Like, you know, Sam and I drink a little bit of bourbon sometimes. You ever go to a bourbon website and you got the "Are you how old?" and you got to select a little drop down. You're like scrolling forever. Well, we've got options to make those type of things a lot easier for your users. One of these I like. We've got the enable mouse wheel selections. You can just click on, say, the year you're born. Scroll off the page there. Scroll with your mouse wheel, and easily pick the birthday from that list. I'm not gonna let you know my age here, but I'll scroll through that. But the point is, we've got lots of ways to customize these things, and you can even customize how they're written out, all of that. The steps that apply between items, complete customization here. All right, we'll jump over to some Blazor stuff now. Everybody loves Blazor. I love Blazor. Happy to see some new components in this release. We've got a big financial services component. So if anybody here is in FinServ, I know there's some folks in the audience here that are doing financial services. The pivot grid is like the must-have component for the financial folks, right?
Yeah, and it's a pain to recreate by hand.
It's a pain.
Before we switch to Blazor, just a quick question here,
Sure.
Ed. Srinivas was asking, the grid sizing thing that you just showed off, that's for MVC and Core, right? Does it work on AJAX?
I'm trying to remember if we have that feature in AJAX. I know we have it in Blazor. I know that doesn't answer your question. Let's take a jump back over to our AJAX grid here.
Maybe it's something the engineers may have already answered, but I just wanted to ask.
They might have. Try to remember. There's so many components for AJAX that I always forget where the grid actually lives in all of that. Modes. There we go. I think this might be. That's not the same thing. Mobile and touch adaptive behavior.
Yeah, there you go.
We have an adaptive grid, a completely adaptive grid here that will do a completely different rendering. This isn't quite the same as the condensed grid, but it is a nice mobile experience that you can automatically detect and show a mobile screen size for. So we do have some features that are in the same bucket, I guess you'd say. Not identical, but very similar idea. Same, they fix the same problem. So jumping over to Blazor, great question, by the way. We've got the pivot grid, and on our live stream yesterday, I told Sam the horror stories that I had of building one of these myself. Like, that was the project, was just to build this custom pivot grid for one of the first dev jobs I had. And this was before I could go to Telerik and just buy a pivot grid. So I spent months, if not years, developing a pivot grid based on some very highly customized things that we were doing for financial services at work. And yeah, I was knee deep in SQL queries and HTML code for months on end. Now you can just buy it, get it from us, implement it, and move on to the next thing, go to the next project. So we have the pivot grid, highly requested by customers, of course, because they don't want to have to do what I just told you I had to do. And it's got quite a few features right out of the box, and there's even more coming. So you've got aggregate data visualizations. You can do custom coloring. It supports multi-dimensional data. We'll dig into this one in just a minute in some demos. Take a look at what that looks like live in the browser. Right to left support. So this is a big one when we talk about internationalization, accessibility, and supporting your application across multiple languages globally. So not all languages are built the same, and I'm not talking about C# and JavaScript. I'm talking about like English and Chinese and all of the various languages that are out there in the world. Some of those languages read right to left. And if we want to support those languages in our applications, that can be pretty cumbersome to implement if you don't have a feature that exists like this. So you can set one setting in your application, and all of our components will render as a right to left language. So this is all just a one-shot, one property thing, and you've got support in your app for right to left. So this automatically adjusts things like button positions, form fields, all of that. It works with charts, grids, and other components as well. Blazor, the Blazor drop zone. So we've had file upload components in the Blazor, the Telerik UI for Blazor library for quite some time. But this is a new addition to those components that let you upload. This one lets you drag files right onto the page and upload them by putting them inside the drop zone. And it integrates with our file upload component as well. So you'll see features where you can turn that on and off just from the file upload component and vice versa. That's a nice addition, especially if you're working with some Azure Blob storage on the back end or something. You want a nice interface to drop files into your application. Blazor Grid, significant performance improvements. We're always trying to make our grid the fastest on the market. We've hit a 40% faster refresh rate through some optimizations that our engineering team worked on in this release. And then you add in the performance improvements coming in .NET 8, and you've got a very fast Blazor Grid. The fastest Blazor Grid for our feature set on the market today. So enjoy that, folks. We've got some chart enhancements, customization on chart label positions, so you can customize charts to what your customers need and what your requirements are. We want to make sure that you have full customization of those items. Forms. The form in Blazor is one of the best things I think that we have and don't talk about enough. Blazor has a unique position where the front end and back end use the same language. So we can take standard classes, C# classes, and read the metadata off of those classes and auto-generate forms and data grids using that metadata. And we use system data annotations and just the class information itself. What's usually the problem with these auto-generated things is you can't mix and match customized fields with the things that are auto-generated. With our Blazor form, however, and our grid, we actually have a component that works kind of like an outlet. I'll show some code here in a minute to kind of get an idea of how this works. But the auto-generated stuff gets emitted to a section on the form, and then you can insert custom columns or custom form elements as well into that, mix them together. So that makes things really easy. So you can have that ease of auto-generation, but also the freedom of customization at the same time. And then, of course, more customization with Blazor Maps. With our Blazor map, we have a new template region where you can set a custom marker appearance. So you can fully customize what the pin looks like that you drop onto the map. This was something that was customer requests. And that feedback forum that we have at feedback.telerik.com, we take that very seriously. So post your items in there and we'll get those upvoted and organized on our roadmap. Just a quick note as well. Again, this goes along with guidance from Microsoft. They are dropping support for .NET 3 and 5. So we are also deprecating support for .NET 3 and 5 in the future here. That will start at the beginning of next year with R1 2024. And this will enable us to take advantage of some of the newer features in .NET 6 and beyond. Those would require some breaking changes to .NET 3 and 5 at the moment. So once we reach R1 2024, we'll be able to take advantage of some things that we're not able to tap into now without causing issue with folks that are using .NET 3 or .NET 5. So let's take a look at a couple demos in the browser with Blazor.
Yeah, Ed, we got sympathizers in the chat room about your story about pivot grids.
We're going to talk about pivot grids some more too.
Try and do that by hand. Yeah.
Yeah. So some people have had to do this, I guess. Yeah. This is our pivot grid, which comes with many of those features that I had to try to write out of the box. That was some spaghetti code if I've ever written any. So you don't have to worry about doing any of that. You can just implement our pivot grid right in your application. And it comes with the settings panel here where you can select fields, drill down into different data right here. You can select columns, rows, values, and this works with OLAP data as well. So you can bind directly to your XMLA data sources. Your financial folks love that XMLA stuff. And of course, templates are supported as well. Remember when I was working on my project, I got it all ready to go, and they're like, "Well, where's all the highlighting and fancy stuff that we need?" And I was like, "Nobody ever told me that was a requirement until now." You know how stakeholders are. They always tell you what they actually need after you release the item that you've been building for months on end. I know you feel me in the crowd there. So that's where templates come in handy. So this is just an easy template that works within the grid here, or the pivot grid. It's, row header templates, data cell templates, so you can check values and see if they are over or under a threshold, and set the colorized fields for those items. I know this was like a hot ticket item with the company I was working on this for. It was like, is our sales a certain value, yes or no? And then we'd have to color those things in. So this is just something that you can add as a template here. Oops. And of course, we've got the update on our stock chart that I was talking about, where we can set the rotation angle of the label items down below. We could just do that through straight like 45-degree angle there. You can see that update below. We could also move this navigator. This navigator is really cool, by the way. So we can zoom in on data in our stock chart here. We can also move that bar up to the top. That's something that your users require. Now it's just a simple flag that you can check and move that up or down. We've got our brand new drop zone component. You can drag and drop files right into this giant gray box here. And of course, you can do templates with this as well. Customize that message inside the box. Even embed your selection button in there if you'd like to. And you can implement custom styles, turn on and off the select files feature through that as well. And that ties nicely into our file manager too, which got some updates as well in this release. So we have the multi-select and selection feature. See that we're selecting multiple files here. I'm holding Control on my keyboard, and I can select and deselect those items. If I hit upload, you can see we could do the file upload by dragging and dropping inside of this uploads drop zone as well. The auto-generated form feature. Again, this is one of my favorites, and you'll probably see me talking about this on stream. If you go into view source here, you'll see there's not a lot of markup for the form component here. And that's because we're generating most of the form through the auto-generated feature here. We zoom in on the code. You can see this is kind of like an outlet. And what it's doing is the form will collect the metadata for the elements that it needs, and it will render those inside of this tag. And any additional items, which you can see above this tag, are custom. So we can customize a couple of the fields and then also have the auto-generated items embedded below the two custom items. If you swap the position around, you could have the auto-generated items come first, and you could implement your custom items below. But it gives you that ability to mix and match those things, which is, again, the best of both worlds. You could always go in and adjust the auto-generated stuff with some system data annotations. Just annotate the fields in your components. And if you already have those annotations in place because you're using something like Entity Framework or whatever, you don't have to repeat that work. It just picks them up and creates the forms for you.
Yeah, I love this as a .NET developer. Annotations are so powerful if you have the right system to read that. Quick question here, Ed, from the chat room. Jim Graves was asking the auto generation of the Blazor form UI. Is there a way to see that?
The auto way to see
like,
what?
I think the question is like the markup of the auto generated form. Or is it like it's all included in the auto generation tag that you just showed?
It would be included in the auto-generated form tag. You can actually take this if you're on the form demo. If you click Edit in Telerik REPL, you could take it off to our Telerik REPL tool, which lets you edit Blazor code right in the browser. And you could play with the code that's in here. You can see we have our person class, and this is where you edit kind of the metadata. And then the component will do its best to figure out what type of editor it needs. So you can see we have a date time property here at the bottom. This date time is going to cause the editor to render a date time picker in this auto-generated items section here. So if we run this again, you'll see we have ID and age. These are the two custom inputs that we created by hand coding them. And then the rest of these are inferred from the class information. So we've got name, the grade, and dates right there. All right. So maps. This is the map component, and we have our custom pins that we dropped. This one's kind of like a weather display. We've got like our home base here, nice and rainy, partly rainy here. So you jump in, and you can see we've got our custom classes here, and then we add those markers through a template in the marker settings, and we just call in that custom class we created and just pipe in a little bit of information to the title, and we're good to go. Let's see here, moving a little bit too fast. I have outpaced my slides. We've got ThemeBuilder enhancements in this release. This includes, why do we say ASP and ASP.NET Core, also Blazor as well, and our Kendo UI offerings too. They all support ThemeBuilder now. So we have customization. I think ASP.NET, MVC, and Core were just added recently. We've had Blazor for a little bit of time. And then we've simplified our project upgrade capabilities inside the editor as well. Integration with Figma is now a feature. So you can pull in your design tokens from Figma, use those directly inside of the ThemeBuilder. We've got single sign-on support and fine-tuned our permissions. So you have view, edit, and admin roles that you can work with in your organization to kind of give different roles to different folks that need to, maybe you have a developer that needs to view but not edit a project. You can do that inside of ThemeBuilder now. The new progress design system resource. We talked about this on stream yesterday, Sam. This is really cool stuff. We've got this brand new Telerik design system, and this is kind of the base of all of our components as well as their themes. And this has some really great examples. It's better to kind of demo this. I had that queued up in the browser. Let's go take a look at the progress design system. And I like the way that we've organized this into different elements here. So you can take a look at how we implement themes and how you can follow our guidelines when you're implementing your themes based on our components. So if we select something like iconography, you could see our SVG icons here, how they're used within different frameworks, how white space is used within them. And then we have some guideline examples in here as well. I always love these type of visualizations where you've got like the do's and don'ts. So if you're in the like Telerik ThemeBuilder, for example, or maybe you're just coding things up with some Sass, you can kind of look at the design system here, and it gives you some examples of what to do and what not to do with those design elements. It even talks about accessibility and how to understand what's happening with the components as far as accessibility goes. Accessibility is something that we've been working very diligently on for the last couple of years to make sure that we're up to the latest Section 508, WCAG compliance, all of those things. And then, of course, we have our design tokens in here. Everything's really well documented. This is going to be a super helpful resource for people working with our themes. And of course, if you want to check out ThemeBuilder, make sure you visit themebuilder.telerik.com, and you can jump right into that. All it takes is a Telerik account. You can jump in and start working on a new ThemeBuilder project. And if you're doing some some themes based on Bootstrap or Material or the new Fluent design, you can jump right in and start customizing your Telerik UI themes. And these work across many products at once. So that's also a nice feature of ThemeBuilder. And the component libraries is if you're working with Angular on one project and Blazor on another, but you're still using the same company branding across both, these themes are going to be useful for many projects.
Hey, Ed, quick question here from the chat room. Kurt Donnelly, who I think we know as Rocketman on our streams, was asking, like, I think it's a ThemeBuilder question where the goal is to style not just our controls or components, but the entire site. So like other controls that you're putting on it. Is that something that's doable?
ThemeBuilder, as far as I know, only supports our components. However, if you're using the Bootstrap theme, there is a mapping that takes place that will also style the Bootstrap components, like the Bootstrap framework elements itself. So we map our variables back to Bootstrap. So if you're already using Bootstrap to theme things on your site, then the Bootstrap Telerik theme might be a good choice for you because it has that capability. You can also use the variables from ThemeBuilder if you're using Sass. So when I hit export, it's going to give me all the variables that you see here on the left-hand side, and I can reuse those variables to style native HTML elements on my application. So there's one in particular that I use quite a bit, this Kendo body background and body text. So if you're using these Kendo variables in your Sass code for things on your website, like for example, I just say HTML background equals Kendo body background. I'm going to make sure that I'm mapping those things to just generic HTML elements in my app. But you need to be using Sass to make that work. But it is something that you could do. And then finally, Sam, we will start to transition over to talking about all things mobile by saying that we officially support Blazor Hybrid with Telerik UI for Blazor. So Sam will talk a little bit about what MAUI is in a few minutes, but this is our official support now for our Blazor components to be used within a Blazor Hybrid application. And what that means is if you're doing Blazor Hybrid, you can submit support tickets and we will help you with those support items. And the components themselves should work seamlessly on Blazor Hybrid applications, which means you've got Telerik UI for Blazor running inside of a native desktop or native mobile application using HTML code to build user interfaces. Very cool stuff.
Yeah, this is super exciting. It's been a while in the making because we need to make sure all our T's are crossed, everything is checked before we can officially say it. But we are able to do so now with all of the engineering efforts. Yeah. So everything that sorry, go ahead.
I just saw a question pop in from Eric. Says that does ThemeBuilder support designing both Blazor and MAUI? Technically, yes, if you're using Blazor Hybrid.
Yep, exactly.
Using Blazor Hybrid, you can build your theme in ThemeBuilder, and it will work on all of the Blazor UI components. It will not, however, translate over to the MAUI native components.
Yep. So we have a lot to cover, and if you folks are, wanting to know more about MAUI and more about cross-platform dev with Blazor Hybrid and WPF and WinUI and WinForms, all of that is coming right up. This was just the web, and I appreciate Ed giving me a little bit of extra time here. So as long as my sore throat holds up, we're gonna have some fun in the next hour. So Ed, if that's it from you, I'm going to take back.
Take it away, sir.
Yeah. and we are going to keep things a little interactive for you folks here. So starting off, we have a quick poll for you folks. Let's see if I have my Windows positioned right. Yep. All right, so for all the web things that Ed talked about, and you have some options here. There's no right or wrong. If you are doing ASP.NET, AJAX or MVC, good for you. You are comfortable, or are you stepping off into the .NET Core world, or are you, all the way over to Blazor? So if you are using a web project, a web application that you are starting up new in the next 6 months, where are you at? And maybe this is a moving scale. We ask this question, most webinars, and we see most of you, starting to move right a little bit, but where are you at right now? So going once, going twice.
I don't represent your normal 9-to-5 developer. I'm totally all in on Blazor myself, but I've done all of the above. I've worked with all of these at some point.
And like we have been saying, the reality is, you have to support your business. You have to do what is, right. So yeah, I mean, that's good to see. Web forms, still some support, and we have been saying that we keep pouring things into web forms because again, that's what's running your applications today. But good to see a lot of you on Blazor. That's great. 52% on Blazor. That makes Ed happy.
As we mentioned, Blazor and MAUI, and I know you're going to be talking about the Blazor Hybrid stuff here. One thing that's really great about planning your Blazor applications is you always have that path into Blazor Hybrid, which lets you do not only web, but you can do web, desktop, and mobile all in one solution. And we have a white paper that I wrote that's been released, and you can find that in the links off of our Blazor landing page. It's
which
right
I'll
there.
be happy to show off. Yeah. All right. So
right
with
at the
that,
top
folks,
navigation, you can find that.
I'll bring that up as well when I talk about Blazor Hybrid. All right, folks, let's switch gears and talk about the native side of the story, because this is also very real, runs your businesses. We want to make sure you have all the tools to build modern mobile apps and all the tools to build modern desktop applications, irrespective of the technology stack that you use. As long as you're in .NET, we are here to support you. So let's talk mobile, right? How do you build mobile applications today with .NET? Well, you kind of have two big things. We'll talk about Xamarin, but let's start with .NET MAUI, because this is clearly the future. And I mean, this is slightly older with .NET 6 right now. .NET MAUI is running on .NET 7. It's getting ready to run on .NET 8, and so are we. So hopefully you see the promise here. It's truly a single shared code base. You're writing truly native cross-platform apps, UI, performance, everything is good. And from a single code base, you're able to render native UI across iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac. So, with the new UI architecture, with Blazor integration, this is clearly the way forward, the evolution of cross-platform development with .NET MAUI. And we have been on this journey with the .NET MAUI folks from the very early days. So we are excited where we are at here right now. Now, as I start talking about MAUI a little bit more and Xamarin, quick poll. We're going to keep you awake here, so no slouching for you. We got some poll questions here, trying to understand where you folks are at. So if you are going to use .NET MAUI today, and again, this is interesting because you can serve purely your mobile audiences or purely your desktop audiences, or both, right? And we see customers, we are trying to cater to customers who are doing both, but maybe you have a preference. Maybe you have a preference of one platform that you are wanting to target more, or maybe first compared to the other ones, right? So is it iOS, Android, Windows, or Mac? Going twice, going thrice. All right. Look at that. This makes me happy, because 69% of you are doing Windows development with .NET MAUI, and this is kind of what we have been seeing as well. And kind of a split between iOS or Android, which is understandable for on the mobile landscape. And this is where I think we see most of our customers as well. So for folks who have been doing Xamarin, you are already in the iOS and Android mind frame. You know how to support mobile apps. and you're trying to move that over to .NET MAUI. But we are also seeing folks who are doing desktop first, people who have no interest in supporting mobile right now, but they're starting with .NET MAUI because it's a single code base that serves Windows and Macs just fine. And maybe a year down the line, 2 years down the line, the same code base will start serving up your mobile apps. So it is really a good place to be. So,
Windows desktop is really an easy transition to, the app stores in general are just harder to get into. There's a lot of more hoops to jump through. So the desktop is a little bit less friction in that regard.
Yeah, and you have multiple ways in which you can, bundle and ship your apps. Could be just MSI, you deploy it within your enterprise, or you go to the app stores. And Windows has an app store, so does Mac, so does iOS and Android. So to Ed's point, when you go to the marketplaces, it's a little bit more formal. You have to kind of, cater to some other requirements. But if you're just deploying apps within your enterprise, then, you're in charge. So let's talk about Telerik UF and .NET MAUI. This is where a lot of our investments and our energy goes into making true cross-platform, development shine for all .NET developers. And we have been on this journey for quite some time. Our first previews were right as .NET MAUI first previews hit. It's come a long way, in 2 years now, the .NET MAUI team, and where our product is, it's a polished UI suite for, seamless integration for mobile and desktop. It works with the latest .NET MAUIs. Every time .NET MAUI has a release, we come out with the release, and we have all the latest tooling support, document processing. We'll talk about this more. It benefits it all, and it's for you to write polished Windows or Mac desktop applications, or iOS or Android on mobile. So we got top-notch tooling wherever you're coming from, Windows or Mac. We got toolboxes where you can drag and drop. Performance is something we take very, very seriously. We also take the fact that we are now cross-platform between mobile and desktop. So a data grid that we can render on desktop, the same data grid renders on mobile as well. And we don't take that lightly, because those are very different form factors, very different interactions between mouse, keyboard, and touch. And again, we are right there in terms of Visual Studio updates. The latest previews, we are right there with you. One quick thing to note, the .NET MAUI team is ending support, or has ended support for .NET 6 running on .NET MAUI, or .NET MAUI running on .NET 6. We're going to give folks a little bit more time until November, and once you make the hop over to .NET Core, once you're on .NET 6, everything gets so much easier. So from .NET 6 to 7 to 8 is just switching one number in your project file, and up and running you go. So just an FYI, you have a little bit more time to get off .NET 6 if you want, and then get onto .NET 7. .NET 8 is long-term support, so you got a lot more to go. Hold on for a second. I'm going to make sure my screens are still visible. Okay, Ed, you can still hear and see me, right?
I can see you, and I can see your .NET MAUI slide.
Okay, good. I think my slide monitor was having some issues here. Okay, so we got plenty of good news, good things happening in the .NET MAUI space, okay? Not often do I get to come out and say, hey, we got 6 brand new controls, because that's how much harder we have been working on some of the .NET MAUI things here. So to get started, first up is a conversational UI. Chatbots are everywhere. This is our chat UI. This is a modern chat UI that you get to put in front of any chatbot service that you have of your choice, right? So think about bot frameworks, Lex, or any other chatbot service, even ChatGPT. We don't want to hold you back. It's your chatbot, it's your chat UI that we want to just enable with our UI. So easy integration with any chat frameworks. We have a variety of message formats and variety of UI things that you can throw in front of your chatbots. So think about, text is kind of given, but how we handle avatars, how we handle like when somebody's typing into it, how we handle different types of, UI that we throw in front of it, text, different types of cards to choose from, pickers, date, pickers, time pickers, suggestion boxes. This is the whole idea, especially on mobile, is you don't want to have users spend too much time. You want to be quick, with your chat, entry, and let the user keep going as quickly as possible. So that's what we enable. So different types of messages, timestamps, typing, avatars, and more. Everything is done for you. It's just conversational UI in front of your chatbots. Moving on, calendars. This is particularly tricky to do when you think about how native these things are on iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac. We can figure out how to render the native calendars so you don't have to worry about it. So it's a modern calendar, works seamlessly across mobile and desktop. It's got a variety of display modes. So things like, year mode, month mode, or if you're old like me and Ed, decade mode, or even century mode, right? Various selection modes, single, multiple. You can have a date range selection. Maybe you are going from a minimum date or a maximum date. Customizable templates on how you want it to look like, how you want to highlight things. If you're doing MVVM, commanding support is built in pretty much everything we do with SAML C# code bases. Very flexible styling APIs. So a modern calendar, just done and ready for you out of the box with .NET MAUI. We have a PDF viewer. This was heavily requested because guess what? Enterprise workflows need to work with PDFs. Maybe it's a report that you're trying to hand off and deliver. We can, your users don't need to switch context and go grab Adobe PDF viewer of some sort or switch context. It can just be presented right there in the app itself, right? So it's feature rich. It lets you visualize all types of rich PDF content from text, different types of text styles, images, tables, lists, shapes, colors. Bring it on. We can happily render everything for you. It will do zoom, it will do single or continuous page scrolling, and the toolbar is built right in, and you can customize it if you want. However much or however little you want to add on to that, that's up to you. All right, so moving on, we have a rich text editor. This is for, mostly for desktop, but again, there's nothing hurting you or nothing stopping you from doing this on mobile as well. Anytime your users are dealing with some rich text, be it, Word type text or be it like HTML type text, and you want them to be able to edit that without leaving your app. And that's what this rich text editor does. It is a powerful control that gives all of the features of an array of tools for the users to be able to work with rich text right inside of your app. So think about creating, editing, formatting all of your rich text documents. Again, think about everything that you normally bring to rich text, like paragraphs, lists, and images, and hyperlinks and different types of fonts. We got it all, right? So just a very powerful rich text editor built right in. There's an integrated toolbox. Again, you get to customize how much or how little you want, and it's for your users to stay on point within your app so they can get everything done. Preview, again, heavily requested because turns out a lot of you folks deal with information or data sources that have hierarchical data that you're trying to represent, and it's just a lot to present everything linearly. This is a way for you to give your users a way to navigate and explore that content, that complexity in a tree view, right? It's a tree view, but it's very, very smart. It will do expand and collapse, and it'll do checkbox support. It'll do different types of selection modes. As we do with any UI where you can bind a lot of data to it, we are careful to give you some virtualization. Not that you should, but if you do bind the tree view to a huge collection of records, we want to make sure it's still very interactive. It scrolls, and all of that is empowered by virtualization. So you can easily, we know how exactly to bind and render whichever parts of the tree view that you're looking at, no more and no less. And it's very customizable in terms of how you want to style it. The icons, the text, everything is up to you. So a modern tree view, think about an organizational chart, think about your emails, think about folders, structures, any type of hierarchical data. This is really good. Try to showcase all of that to your users. There's a brand new slide view. This is, a control that's meant for you to showcase your visually stunning data, right? So think about it like a carousel view or a gallery view that you're trying to build. It has those left and right markers that you can scroll right through. There's like a pagination or a pip viewer down at the bottom that shows you where you are at. And it's just there for you to, customize however you want. It's all template driven, like all of the items, all of the controls, everything is a template. So you get to customize exactly how you want to look at, and the indicators and the slide buttons, everything is customizable. And this one also has virtualization built in, along with commanding support if you're doing MVVM. So any type of rich content that you want to present in a gallery view or like a set of wizards, this is the UI for you. Now, these are some of the newest controls, but we also have customers who are doing, desktop first, and for them, or even, for mobile customers, data grid matters a lot because that's, the most common way in which we present tabular data or in like rows and columns, and you want a full-featured grid that lets you do everything out of the box, right? So sorting, grouping, filtering, being able to edit all of the data inside of your data grid, all of that is doable and done for you. We have a brand new data table support, so you can bring in your data tables based on whichever data source that you have, and it is fully featured data grid. We also have an empty template functionality now. So essentially, if you bind a set of data objects to your data grid, and it's a two-way data binding, especially if you give the user the ability to start removing rows from your data grid, removing records, eventually you might not end up with any records in your data source itself. So the grid has nothing to show, but with an empty template, it's going to tell the user that, hey, I'm bound to a collection that's empty, so I got nothing to show. So there's an empty template, there's a whole bunch of performance tuning, and we're always, sweating over those little things that you do with your mouse and keyboard on a data grid, with your touch on a data grid, so it, works seamlessly across mobile and desktop. So a lot of love being poured into the data grid for .NET MAUI. All right, now I will show you some of this in action, but just so you know, and just so you don't have to believe me, all of this code and all of these examples that I will show you, it's out there for you to take a look at. So we have lots of demo apps that are built. There's a very cool crypto tracker app that we have built. There's of course a control gallery. There's an SDK browser for some of those unique and advanced like how-to scenarios, like how do I do this with this particular UI? We got you all of that covered. It's something you can download and see on your local machine, or all of this is also out on GitHub, so you can take a look at some of the samples so how we use our UI. These apps are also out in the app stores, so you don't need to install anything, just get the app on your phones or your tablets, and you can browse through some of the UI that we make for .NET MAUI.
Now, Sam, before you jump over to demos and start tracking your crypto, there's a couple questions. It looks like people were pretty interested in the PDF support on MAUI. One question was, are forms in PDF supported? I know in document processing library they are. I don't know in the context of what you were showing if that is supported or not. And the other one was, is the MAUI PDF viewers, does it support PDFs generated from Telerik reporting?
Oh yeah,
I would assume that's an easy yes.
Yeah, absolutely. The form thing, I want to say yes, but it might come down to some, knowing some details of where it's been entered. But I mean, it's being displayed on a desktop or a mobile device, so it has all of the inputs to, take in. But like how that entry makes its way back into the PDF, that might be something our engineering teams can, look into and try to get back.
I don't know offhand if you can just like save it out, but I know with with the document processing library, there's some access to those things. So there might be a way to custom.
So we'll talk about this a little bit more, but we have a document processing library, which is a standalone thing if you want to use it, or it's actually integrated in every one of our UI suites. And we know exactly how to handle PDFs or Word documents or, Excel spreadsheets. We can get down into the absolute lowest detail of writing it out as a stream. So if you bring a PDF and if you want to edit something on the PDF and save it back, write it back, we can do all of that. So maybe the PDF viewer is just for viewing, but you use that as a combination with our PDF processing, then you can, light up a lot more scenarios. Yeah, good questions there. All right, so let's talk about the next thing that Ed kind of mentioned, and this is big. It's taken us a while, but Blazor Hybrid, you keep hearing this term. You can call it whatever you want. Essentially, it is bringing Blazor into native apps, iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac. So you can keep doing what you're doing for web, and that's what's lighting up your web apps, but you can bring that same UI, that same routes, those same components now into native apps. And this is powered by something called a web view, which is a modern rendering of a browser that you already have installed on iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac. Every platform has a browser, and we can borrow a component of that browser without any of that shell and be able to render all of our web UI on it. the benefit here is you can get to all of the platform APIs that you have access to from .NET MAUI straight up from Blazor code, because it's .NET, it's running C#, and it's not running on a web server or a WebAssembly mode. It's literally running on the machine that you're on, be it on mobile or desktop. And the good news is this is, it works hand in hand, obviously, with .NET MAUI, but it's not just for .NET MAUI, because again, the reality is if you have a long-standing WPF or a WinForms app, it's hard for you to just drop it all and just restart your Windows application with .NET MAUI. And why would you, when WPF and WinForms are already, serving your needs just fine with Windows? Maybe you want to modernize. Maybe you can just bring in a little island of modernness, bring in a little bit of Blazor UI inside of your WPF or WinForms app, and we can enable that as well. So we are here to say that everything that Ed showed you for Blazor on the web works now on native apps. And again, this is with full support from us, so you have confidence going into this. And there are some nuances which we'll talk about a little bit more. There are some things that you might have to do, but overall, all of our UI just works out of the box. And this is a great thing for us to be able to support. All right, another quick poll, right? And this one has to do with Blazor Hybrid, because that's what we're talking about, right? Give me a second if I can bring up my second monitor, because I'm not able to see my camera all that well. So I just need to share my screen one more time. Okay. All right. So if you are interested in Blazor Hybrid, you understand the promise. You're bringing in Blazor into a native app that's mobile or desktop. Where are you? Is this something new to you? Do you see the point? Do you have WinForms and WPF apps that you want to bring in Blazor into, or is this something that you just want to use with .NET MAUI? So again, understand the promise that Blazor Hybrid is essentially bringing Blazor goodness into native desktop and mobile apps. Do you see the promise? Do you understand where this might help you share code better between web apps and native apps? So let's do a poll of where all of you folks are right now with Blazor Hybrid. Going once, going twice, and let's see. Okay, all right, fair enough. A lot of you are not planning on, and it's true that it's new. And a lot of you do not know much about it. That's why we are here to tell you more about it. Yep. A lot of you are interested in using it with MAUI. So this is all fair.
It's very, very early on. MAUI's, especially Blazor Hybrid, is very, very new. So
yeah,
the poll isn't a big surprise to me, Sam.
Yeah, but let this sit for a little bit, okay? This is something we are supporting from the get-go here. Let it sit for a little bit. Take a look at this. If you are particularly using Blazor for your web apps, then this is an easier sell for you to bring that UI into native apps and still have all of the Blazor UI that you know and love from us now lighting up native applications. So I think it's got some legs here. I want to show you all of this in action, so give me just a little bit more time here. I want to show or talk about one more thing before we jump into some demos, and that's Xamarin, okay? So for folks who have been doing .NET cross-platform, iOS or Android for the last, several years before MAUI came along, Xamarin has been the way to do it, and we have been right there with you trying to support you with Xamarin. It is a very, very polished and mature UI suite from us because it's got years of engineering into it. It works on Windows or Mac, NuGet packages, easy getting started, guides, lots of document processing and screen templates, lots of sample apps. Everything is done for you. However, I will say there is an end game in sight. You got until May 2024 until Microsoft ends support for Xamarin. Now, that doesn't mean the product is dying, and we will likely support you for much longer, but hopefully you're seeing the writing on the wall that you need to move on from Xamarin onto MAUI. And the good news is this is very, very easy for you to migrate. If you have dependencies that are just not moving over from the older .NETs, maybe you start re-architecting your apps, but our UI wise, there's nothing stopping you. There are upgrade assistants that help you make that migration very, very easily. Just a couple of namespace switches and you're up and running with that MAUI app. Or you can restart and do that migration by hand, where you start up a Xamarin MAUI or a .NET MAUI app and you bring over your Xamarin assets, like your UI, your view models, your models, everything just comes over, switch up a few namespaces, and then the XAML, most of it you can reuse. So there's a very nice path forward. For Xamarin, though, we are still, putting in little bits of love and care here and there. The data grid that I talked about for .NET MAUI, the empty template support, Xamarin gets it too. So again, if you are binding a data grid to a collection that's now empty, you have a nice and visual way to let the user know that, hey, you're looking at an empty data grid with nothing. I mean, the binding is okay, there's just no data in it. So, be it messages, be it images, you have a choice of how to let the user know. So again, if you're doing Xamarin today, if you're supporting apps on iOS or Android, especially the older versions of iOS or Android, that's fine. But hopefully your users also know that they have to move forward with iOS or Android and not be stuck on the same, older versions. So .NET MAUI is the way forward, but you got some time to move from Xamarin into .NET MAUI. And for Xamarin, you got lots of help from us as well. We got like 4 different types of apps, or 5 actually, that are all in stores with all of the code base that's out on GitHub as open source. So we have an ERP app, a CRM app, a to-do app, a Tagit app, and plus the sample app that I will show you. All of it is out there for you to look through. Maybe you want to do some MVVM, but you're maybe a little shy of bringing in an MVVM framework. Take a look at some of these apps where we do not use much of an MVVM framework, but it's all built in. Same with .NET MAUI, MVVM support is kind of built in, so it's nice to see a full-featured code base of an app that's in the stores and how we let that UI shine. All right, it's been about 24 or so minutes of talking. Let's get into some action and see how this all works out. Okay, so first thing is, let's start with .NET MAUI. And I'm going to pull up Visual Studio here, pull up this little sample app here. What I'm trying to show you is, if you are new to what we do, you head out to telerik.com and you look up mobile components and our MAUI suite. It tells you all that we do. This is growing really, really fast because all of our energy is into .NET cross-platform story now. You get to see, how fast we have ramped up with .NET MAUI. These are all native UI for iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac. Works seamlessly everywhere, and we are just pouring lots and lots of love into this. You can hit the try button. You can go check out the apps that are in the stores that I mentioned. Like, these are the 2 apps that you can check out. This is the control showcase that I'm actually showing you, so you can get the app and check it out on your phone or tablet or desktop, or you can install this and check it out as code, which I'm about to do here in Visual Studio. So here's the control sample app, and if I can show you how this is structured, this is MVVM, but not done without or done kind of without an MVVM framework here. So let's hold on, try to maximize this. And in here are our examples. So this is what kind of tells you how each of the controls are structured and how you can kind of look through the source code. Let's run this on Mac Catalyst first. And again, it's a .NET MAUI app, so it runs the same way on iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac here. It's going to come up first on my Mac, because that's what I ran it as. Okay, so control sample. This is looking busy because it is a desktop app, and we can render the same app with much less busyness because now you're on mobile on iOS or Android. So a couple of new things right out of the bat that you will check out. So first is calendar. This, like I mentioned, is a proper calendar control. It does let you style it however you want. So if you look at the customization, we can let you highlight things on the calendar exactly how you want. And this can be configured to your heart's content. Like, what type of culture does the calendar want? What type of display mode? Is it month or day or year? Minimum dates and maximum dates, especially if you let the user choose a date range. What starts the day of the week, what type of selection mode you want, all of that is customizable for you. So a full-featured calendar control is just done and ready for you. Now let's look at the chat UI. This is conversational UI. We have had a similar UI for Xamarin. We are just happy to bring it over to .NET MAUI, and now with AI everywhere, you can enable this as a backend to whatever or front end to whatever backend you might have. So this one's kind of trying to mimic a travel assistant program. I want to travel with my family. It's going to, now this is actually talking to an Azure bot service that's hosted in Azure. So I can say I want to start on that day for 5 days. And how many people are you traveling with? Maybe my family is Ed, so I'm just going to be Ed and me traveling on a vacation. And it's trying to tell you, a couple of things here that you'll notice. You saw a calendar view. This one's a little bit of, a picker. There can be suggestions that you throw in. Once I choose a spot, this is, a little bit of an oversimplification, but it kind of shows you a card view, right? So it's showing me the hotels and the resorts that I can choose. And, it's easy for the user to just, tap on something and quickly be done with your chat. Travel arrangements, yes, sure. And I get some flights to choose from, and I hit OK, and then you're done essentially. Or you can talk more. But the idea is, again, any type of chatbot that you want to build with rich user experiences of cards and pickers and suggestions and date time pickers, all of that is kind of built in. If you take a look at the chat room example here, this also shows you different types of coloring, and without me even typing anything, you can see that it's trying to figure out that other people are typing. Maybe you want to combine people into a chat room, maybe you want to give them special avatars. So all of that messaging formatting, it's done for you. So it's conversational UI that's ready for you to build any type of chatbot with any type of chat framework in the backend. All right, so moving on, there is a few brand new controls here. This is the PDF viewer that we talked about. So take a look at any PDF that you have, be it maybe it's something that's embedded within your app. Maybe it's just something you're reading as a stream. Maybe it's just a remote server that's serving up your PDF, or a reporting engine. It's going to happily display all of the PDF. And like we talked about, once you come down to manipulating the PDF, that's where some of our PDF processing can come in handy. So PDF viewer, heavily requested, it's done. Rich text editor. So think about a blog engine or anything that the user is submitting something through your app. You want to have that safety, but let them have all of the rich text editing features. Images, lists, tables, all of that is available to you with a rich toolbar. And you get to customize this. This is all MVVM driven with commanding support, so you can do whatever you want. Import and export, variety of rich text formats are supported, so you are really good to go there. Let's move on to the slide view. This is a control that lets you have that left-right indicators, so you can tap on it or click on it, and it just shows you the pagination down at the bottom, and it's just for you to highlight and visualize really rich content. Think about like a wizard, think about like a gallery where you can just quickly show this off. And again, this comes with a rich set of configurations. So is it looping or is it going end to end? How many items are you showing? Is the orientation vertical or horizontal? Do the navigation buttons show? Do they show when you hover over it? So how can you control the animations? All of that is there as APIs. And you kind of see this as a trend in almost every UI that we do. The APIs are kind of consistent, easy for you to understand what we're trying to offer you. Okay, and then the last new control that I'll show you is the tree view. Again, think about like an inbox. Think about like an organizational structure where you have nested hierarchical data. This is perfect because now this inbox here collapses and expands. You can control the animation. You can control exactly what this looks like. And it's a tree view that is very flexible, and you can control exactly what the rest of the UI looks like, how you want to bind. That's all up to you. So that's all of the new UI components. I don't think I missed anything in there, but there are lots of updates. You can see that we have updates to our chat, our chart components, our data forms, our data grids. They're all updates that you can check out. I wanted to show you just a little bit of some of the code that we're doing, and all of this code is right there for you to check out. Here's that the chat UI, the conversation UI that I showed you. Here's how we are wiring it up. It's pretty standard C# and XAML code. We have our when the items collection changes, how we respond to things, how we add things to that collection, and how we are sending messages to our bot service, and how we are accepting messages back in. All of that is done for you, and the pickers have their own events that they raise. And here's the chatbot service where we are hooking onto the bot framework, and here's how we are setting up a conversation. Here's how we are sending a message. Here's how we are reading a message from the bot. So it's all done for you to be inspired with, and hopefully take a look at how we have done a full-fledged chat application with our UI.
There were some questions about that earlier, Sam.
Go ahead.
So if you're not familiar with chatbots on the back end, are in our demo there, do we wire up to something on some kind of chatbot service that we can?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that code is there for somebody to check out.
It doesn't have the Azure key, but you can look through the code, absolutely. So this one's hooked up to the Azure chatbot service, the bot framework essentially for .NET, which you can host on Azure or anywhere else you want. But this is just the front end, right? So you want to use Amazon Lex or you want to use ChatGPT, that's up to you, right? So whenever is the interface between your application and the chat engine, whatever comes or goes out or comes back in, this is the thing in the middle that's going to figure out what type of UI your app needs to render and go accordingly. So the user doesn't have to type up everything, they can pick and choose, and it's that much quicker. So this is kind of a quick look at the first look view, XAML. So I was going to show off that the PDF here, that's just local, but you can see it's reading it as a stream, and then you can also look up a remote PDF. All it needs is a file or a stream to show that PDF viewer. That's just the PDF viewer. That's how simple it is. This one here is some XAML that I pulled up from the tree view control. So you can see that this is the tree view, and all it's doing is binding it to a collection. And here's the collection here. This one's dealing with like emails and folders. So you can see like the hierarchy is right here. Like I have a folder called MAUI. Inside of it are multiple emails. So there's a clear parent-child type relationship, and that's what we can highlight with the tree view. So any type of hierarchy doesn't need to be one level, multiple levels of nesting. It can do it all, right? So that's a quick look at the tree view. Again, heavily requested for some of the enterprise workflows, for manufacturing or from organizational charts. This is really helpful. And again, the same app, I can just switch it up and run this on a smaller form factor, and you can see how all of the rendering just changes, because now we realize you are on a smaller form factor. So the same grid, the same charts, the same UI, conversational UI that you see for desktop now works on mobile devices. And again, we don't take this lightly because it takes a lot of finesse and it takes a lot of engineering. But for the first time, you are now able to take a piece of XAML UI and throw it on your app and know that it's going to work seamlessly between iOS, Android, and Windows and Mac. Right. So this is a cold start, so it's taking a second for it to come up. But when it does, you're going to see the same app, just not as busy because now you are on on a mobile form factor. Let's see if it's still bundling up. Okay, there you go. So again, same list of all of the UI, and it has those new things as well. If I just tap into the calendar, you can see like now it's an iOS calendar, and the look and feel is just different between Mac and iOS, between Windows and Android. So there you have it. So all of this is out there as an app, so you can check out on your own. Now there's one more thing I wanted to show you, just so you're not feeling left out. Again, Xamarin is the reality for let's see if this is the app. It's the reality for many of you, and we keep supporting Xamarin, and we will be here to help you stay productive as you're plotting your migration from Xamarin onto .NET MAUI. But again, if you're using Xamarin and our Telerik UI for Xamarin, you get some updates as well. I don't need to install Android right now. It's doing a quick build just for iOS. And it's trying to bring up my simulator here. This is what Ed has over me. It's not a browser, it's actually a real simulator that comes up. So here's the iOS simulator that's coming up. And that's our Xamarin sample app. Again, you have those apps in the app stores, so don't trust me. Go look yourself and make sure all of this UI works for you. So just one quick thing I wanted to show you was if I head over to the data grid here, And you get the same exact experience actually on MAUI as well. But if I head over to the empty template here, in case your data grid is tied to a collection that's empty, now you have a way of letting the user know very easily that, hey, nothing's wrong with the UI or the binding, it's just an empty collection that you're looking at. So Xamarin UI is here to help you, all right? All right, so that's with Xamarin. Now let's switch gear to Blazor Hybrid, because a lot of you had questions about that. So I'm going to close this and I'm going to bring up a different solution here. And before I do that, I will show you one more thing here. So if you head out to telerik.com and let's just say I want to go look into Blazor applications, right? I'm building web applications with Blazor. I want nothing to do with native apps for mobile and desktop, except my users and my manager keeps asking for native apps. Well, now you don't have to restart the whole thing. You can now reuse Blazor. Right in here, there's a new landing page called Blazor Hybrid. This is us formally coming out to say we support this and we will be in this journey for you. Maybe it's brand new for you, but it's there for you to consider. If you are building any type of apps with Blazor, server-side or WebAssembly, you can take all of that same UI, the same components, and start lighting up experiences on mobile or desktop. So it kind of walks you through exactly what some of those things are. I don't know who this guy is, but you get some resources here, that ebook that Ed was talking about. So all of this is there to help. And essentially what it means is bringing in Blazor into a .NET MAUI app or a WinForms app or a WPF app. And we got some documentation that kind of step you through exactly how you do that. So here's a quick little app that I was trying to write. So essentially this is a .NET MAUI app, right? So it looks and feels like a .NET MAUI app. It's got the MAUI program, which is how a .NET MAUI app bootstraps. I'm going to bump up my fonts here a little bit. You can see it's bringing in the Blazor web view. That web view is key because that's the web view that's going to let us bring in all of our web content, including our styles and our routes and our components, and be able to render that inside of a native app, but with full platform API. So that's my web view. However, in this .NET MAUI app, which is squarely meant for .NET native apps, I am bringing in Telerik UI for Blazor. That's my NuGet package right here. And this is enabled because .NET MAUI apps, if you use the Blazor template, they give you this SDK style, and then they add the Razor bit to it so that it knows how to render Razor components, and that's what you're rendering. Blazor components, which are essentially Razor components, and you can bring in Razor class libraries if you have your components in a separate file, and that's a strategy that a lot of folks use to share code, the UI part of the code, between web apps and native apps. So once I bring that in, the rest of it is as easy as setting up Blazor on for web applications as well. I have a couple of using statements here. In my MAUI program.cs, I use @Telerik Blazor, which is the same thing that you do for web applications as well. In my index.html, which is something that lives in www if it's a .NET MAUI project, and all of my Blazor UI lives right here in my pages view. I'm bringing in some some CSS and JavaScript that's needed for Blazor to style things right. And then my main page.xaml, no different here from any other .NET MAUI app with Blazor. I'm just bringing in the Blazor web view and pointing it to index.html, pointing it to the first UI component. And if I look at my index.razor view here, this is a Blazor view, got nothing to do with native apps, but here it is. All of my Telerik UI, my barcodes, my calendars, my gauges, my charts, everything that you see and love from Ed for web now works on native apps. So I can pull this up really quickly. This is running on Mac Catalyst here, but the same app works on iOS, works on Android, works on Windows as well. So Blazor is very, very welcome inside native apps, and I don't think I will have the time, but you can do the same with WPF and WinForms as well. Just drop in that web view and it'll happily render all of your Blazor UI. So Blazor Hybrid from us, it's official and guaranteed to support you. So please consider reusing your Blazor UI. All right, time to switch up gears. I got 20 minutes left, which is not much time. Let's switch up gears here. So let's go here and talk about desktop, right? Because that is, so key to so many enterprise workflows. So we want to make sure we're enabling you to do desktop applications right. And I promise this is the last poll question of the day. We are just trying to make things interactive for you, right? So if you are building desktop apps today, you have a lot of choice here, right? So are you on .NET Framework? Are you doing WinForms or WPF? Or are you doing WinForms and WPF, but have you moved over to the newest .NETs like .NET 6 and 7 and 8? Are you doing .NET MAUI as your desktop first? Or, I mean, are you considering things like Blazor Hybrid with .NET MAUI? So if you are to build a desktop application today, maybe you have to keep supporting your existing users, but what would you choose now as your desktop strategy? Ed, what are your thoughts on this? Where do you see the answers? I think it's going to be a mixed bag.
Your next application, I mean, I did WinForms a long time ago. It's still surprising to see that stuff works, but I know people are big fans.
Stuff absolutely works. Yeah. So let's talk about this.
Probably the future, but like I said, it's hard to let go of those things that work.
Absolutely. It's harder to justify investment when something that you have already works so well. All right, so let's see your responses here, folks. I am guessing it's going to be a mixed bag. Wow.
Pretty heavy on .NET MAUI. Look at that.
I did not see that coming. Okay, so
you convinced everybody. You should have done the poll first.
That's true. That's true. Well, it's exciting for sure because it's the evolution of cross-platform .NET development, which is desktop first as well. So it's exciting to see. But again, if you're doing WinForms or WPF, know that the stuff that you have works really well, and we are here to enable more of it. Okay, so let's talk about native Windows development. And for folks who are hardcore and you do Windows development first, let's talk about WinUI. This is the latest Windows UI and UX stack, and we have been on this journey trying to enable Windows developers to be more successful with WinUI development for the last several years now. Hopefully the screens are catching up. Yep, there it is. All right, so Telerik UI for WinUI is our latest Windows desktop suite, rides on all of the WinUI 3 developments, both Win32 and UWP style in-store or desktop apps. We are up to version 2.6.0, works with the latest Windows app SDKs. The document processing libraries, it benefits all UI suites, so of course it benefits WinUI. So again, the spreads, stream processing, the PDF processing, the docx, Word style processing, it's all there. MVVM style, latest Fluent design, it's all there. And it's really, really rich, right? So if you want to do a modern, up to the latest standards of modern Windows app development, we are here with all of the hard-hitting controls. Like our ribbon views are super popular, so are our grids and charts, our maps and graphs and different types of gauges and spark lines. It's all there for you. It's very, very full-featured. It's got virtualization, localization, everything is built in. We have a brand new control in WinUI that I absolutely love. It is so sweet. It is a time bar UI, right? Think about it when you have a long time period of something that you're showing in your app, and you want the users to focus on one thing at a time, one small segment of time at a time. You throw in a time bar which lets you focus on just that segment and have subsequent things highlighted for that time period, right? And the user gets to stretch and zoom on this if you want, move it around. It's really cool. So it's meant for time-bound data visualization, easy scrolling through long periods of time. It's got interval support, so you can control that programmatically or let the user be in charge. The interfaces and the formats can be custom or defined. It lets you focus on specific time slots. Maybe over a year you want to showcase that 1 week as to why your sales numbers spiked and things like that. So it's really, really cool, and I would love to show you that in just a second. Let's talk about WPF and WinForms. And again, we don't say this lightly, and it is so amazing, for Ed and me to see this, because WinForms and WPF, they're like 15 and 20 years old, and here they are running on the latest .NETs. So it literally runs on all of the .NET. So .NET Framework, if that's where you are at, be at peace, because as long as Windows is around, .NET Framework will be around. But hopefully you are, trying to make its way across to .NET Core and forward. So 3.1, 6, 7, .NET for ARM, we got you everywhere. And then the latest bits, .NET 8 is what's cooking. We're up to preview 4, and we can support you right now with WinForms and WPF UI on .NET 8 preview 4. And .NET 8 is going to be a long-term support release, so a lot of enterprises have more of the incentives to switch. So we are here for you no matter what be the .NETs. Let's talk about WPF real quick. Again, WPF is super rich UI suite. 160 plus UI components all over years and years of engineering that you're looking at. But we are here to bring you a slide view along with the pips pager, which is really cool. Again, the similar experience that you kind of saw with the slide view on Xamarin and .NET MAUI. It is meant for interactive navigation over visually stunning content that you have. It lets you showcase your content, lets you build those gallery or wizard type views. This thing that you see on the left and right, those glyphs are actually called pips. I didn't know this actually. So it's called a pips pager. So the left and right, and then the content that shows you which page that you're on, that's just called the pips pager. It works by itself, but it works so much better with the slide view, right? So you can loop or you can do end to end. You can do vertical or horizontal orientation. All of that is done for you. There's a brand new theme, Windows 11 Compact. So think about all of your grids and charts and everything, and think about a very dense UI with lots and lots of information. You want things to be a little bit more compact. That's what this thing comes in. Just changes up the height and width and of things, but you don't have to do anything. Just change up one theme, and we will swap everything out for you. So there's a brand new theme here. Docking updates. This is really cool. No longer are you restricted by moving pane, things that you define. Now you can define your own group of docs, and within the same application you can move docs and panes around, right? So a lot of flexibility for you users to let things be on their own side by side or dock things within other docking containers. So really flexible docking update here. Could be nested, could be side by side. We have other feature improvements all across. The syntax editor now gets a search UI, kind of similar to what you expect from coding editors, whether we want to match on case, whether we want to match on the whole word or any regular expressions, and then replace or replace all of that is a powerful search experience, and now it's built right into the syntax editor. The pivot grid, Ed is happy to get a pivot grid for Blazor now. We have had it for a while, and now it supports hierarchies in your local data source provider, nested, multiple layers of nesting, and you can build out reports based on those nested properties. And of course, WPF receives the same document processing upgrades that WinUI and .NET MAUI and Xamarin and WinForms do as well. WinForms, again, probably kind of the oldest kid in the block, but still going strong, and we love the productivity that WinForms brings in. It gets a brand new UI component that I think WPF got last release. So there is a new heat map, and this is a wonderful control that lets you visualize a tremendous amount of numeric data in a very quick, eyeball type format, because it shows you those trends without which, without the different colors showing you the magnitude of the numeric value, you will be a little lost trying to figure out how to make sense of so much of data. But one look at the heat map, it tells you exactly where the numbers are more, where the numbers are less, and so on. So it's very flexible in terms of how it does data binding, how it does colorizations, labels, tooltips, selections. It's full featured and ready for you to use. All right, so Ed and me quabble over this dark mode versus light mode. You do you, and dark mode is actually really good for accessibility as well. But we have a brand new theme in Telerik UI for WinForms. It's Visual Studio 2022 dark mode inspired. So everything that you expect from Visual Studio, you can have the same look and feel for your WinForms application. Everything just goes dark, but still adheres to the new styling ways of doing things. More and more updates. The scheduler. We haven't done stuff with the scheduler because it's very full-featured anyways, but now the appointment styles are new. Instead of gradients, you have flat, modern, and very vibrant colors if you want to use that. And you can do that for across multiple themes, and we will adjust the styles accordingly. The rich text editor gets line numbering. This is very popular for code editors or legal or healthcare documentation. So the line numbers can be stopped and started. It works independently across paragraphs and sections, even pages, right? And same DPL updates across WinForms as well. And speaking of DPL, this is a separate .NET library for us now. I got 10 more minutes left, which is good. Now this does all of your PDF, all of your Word and Excel type processing right inside of your web, desktop, or mobile apps with .NET, right? So no need to go to Microsoft Office or Adobe or anything else. It can be all done with all of the granularity that you want, all inside of your .NET applications right here. So a couple of big enhancements with PDF processing. We can now do image compression setting. you get to control how much is the desired level of compression that you need when you are building and and shipping off a PDF. And we are using things like from SkiaSharp that controls how we implement things for JPEG images and image properties. So you get a more fine-tuned control over exactly how images are rendered for your PDFs. For spread stream, now all of your rich text. Now think about how many times you copy a piece of content from Excel or something else which has a lot of formatting in it, and you don't care about all of that formatting. All you just want to do is bring in the text, bring in the numbers. Now it can just filter out all of the formatting and just seamlessly extract just the textual content of it inside of a spread stream. And whatever we do here benefits all of the UI suites. All right, time to take a look at some desktop stuff. All right, and here I'm going to go for just a second, not to a VM this time around. I'm going to go remote into a machine. It's not so fancy. It's actually a Windows machine that's sitting right under my desk here. So I am remoting into my Windows machine. Here we are. So let's start with WinUI. All right, so this is, again, I'm showing you the sample apps. Many of these you can just get from the app stores, or you can just download the trial or download the bits and you can see the same sample apps. So this is 2.6.0, the latest WinUI sample that I'm showing you. This is the new time bar, and just look how cool this is. Imagine this being years and years of data that you're showcasing. This little guy here is called the time bar, and when I move it, you can see that the numbers and the charts and graphs that are tied to that segment of the time, they change. And I get to move it across different time zones if I want, right? So that one went too far across, and I get to control how that interval looks like. And I can do this programmatically or let the user guide it. So it's a time bar that sits on top of whatever is your long time period and lets you focus on that specific thing, right? So take a look at all of the other WinUI controls that we have. It is really, really full featured. If you are building a modern Windows bleeding edge desktop application, WinUI is your choice, and we got all of the UI for you to light up those experiences. So that's WinUI. Let's take a look at WPF here really quick. And again, these are apps that are in the app stores, or you can install or let the installer do it for you, or grab the trials and it'll install the same binaries. You get the source code as well, so you can take a look at what we do. So again, this one has a lot and lots of controls here across editors, across data management, visualization, layouts. This is both WinForms and WPF. You can this is 15+ years of engineering, so of course it's rich and very, very fluent. But let's take a look at the slide view here. So this is a slide view, exactly what it sounds like, but it's well done and it's very, very performant. It's virtualized, so bind it to however much you want. So I can click, and it just goes next. And again, if you are building a WPF app, maybe for a kiosk, maybe you want to do touch, and that's fine too, because this will render just fine for touch. And here's that Pips pager thing that I talked about. It kind of shows you which one, the classic web experience that Ed and team are so used to on the web. Now we can do it for desktop as well. And if I scroll down here in the theming, you can see that's the new compact mode. So not much shows here because this is a dark compact mode, but if I go to the compact mode here, maybe this is not the best example, but if I show you like a grid, you can see just how everything becomes a little bit more compact and dense, because you're trying to do that for a lot of dense piece of information. So we'll let the pivot grid render here. So that's with the Fluent Light. And when I go to Windows 11 Compact, you can see I get to see more. Everything is just compacted and shown more. The docking example is really cool here. It's kind of starting to highlight a document pane that you cannot move. But think about your Visual Studio style code editor or anything else where you have dockable windows. I can take anything and I can just stick this in, and I can define my own set of docking containers, and I can move panes seamlessly across those docking containers. So really cool stuff happening with WPF. Now let's look at WinForms here. All right, and again, when you're launching these demos, something quick to check is on the very top, it should say R2 2023. That's how you know that you're looking at the latest app. If not, it's going to prompt you that, hey, there's an update from the app stores, and you can just go and get that update. So we tell you exactly which version of the UI components you're looking at. So this is the heat map for WinForms. So if I move it around, if I go take a look at the first look here, so this one is charting, I think, population across different countries in Europe, right? So you can see it's a ton of data across, a decade or more, right? But right away, the green and the yellow and the red kind of take, talks to you about where the magnitude, where the density of those numbers are. And it's just visually very easy for me to take a look at this. And again, there's a new VS 2022 dark mode here. So again, everything goes dark exactly how you expect Visual Studio to be, right? Or I can do Windows 11, which is a standard look and feel for most Windows 11 apps. So this is a full feature dark mode, and it's just right there and ready for you to use. This one is showing you, more colleges and universities, so you get to, take a look at how we can, slice and dice the data to show you more of that. And if I show you the customization here, this kind of shows you how. Hold on, let me see if I can get down here. So these are all the different themes, but I was trying to show you how you can customize the different colorizations. This one kind of does, so you can see the tooltips. You can see how you can control the temperature of the color to match the magnitude of the data, the numeric data that you're trying to show. So all of that is done and done for you. We got improvements with the schedulers. This is so cool. These are the appointment styles, right? So Ed and me are used to the classic style, which is the gradients, like the whole Windows 98 style, maybe not Windows 98, but gradients and the whole way of doing things. It's come a long way. Modern Outlook, modern, calendar apps don't do that anymore. So now you switch one flag to modern and you get big, vibrant colors. And again, you can switch up different themes. We will still render it accordingly for your theme of choice. Rich text editor, this one now gets a new line numbering. So let's remind me later, and we'll let that line numbering load up for a second. And you can see like this, these are, flat out numbers, but they can be, discontinued or restarted across different sections, across different pages if you want. So you got a lot of control over how exactly you want to, do that numbering. And again, if I switch the theme, you see how everything else goes dark, but this is your document, be it HTML, be it Word, so you don't want to mess with your own document. But everything else about the UI, we can swap out the colors and the themes based on what you're trying to do. So if you hit the Explore All buttons, color controls button here, you get to see everything that we do for WinForms as well. Lots and lots of control, 150 plus UI components, and they all have those little flags that says, hey, I'm updated, or hey, I'm new. So take a look at all of this and see what works for you for your desktop applications. So with that, we've been speaking for quite some time now. I want to go back here to Ed, and we have 2 minutes left, Ed. So tell me if there are anything we can answer together.
There were a lot of questions around how do I choose between Blazor Hybrid and MAUI? Want to end the show with a little insight?
Yeah, so again, we have our opinions, but it depends on your code base, right? So to me, the guiding stone should be, what are you doing? Like, are you doing native apps first, then .NET MAUI and C# and XAML is where you want to be? Or are you doing web apps first, then Blazor is where you want to be? And then if you happen to be supporting both, then Blazor Hybrid is a really good option, because then for younger folks who are not old like me, you don't need to jump into XAML as much. You don't need to learn XAML. All of your Blazor UI just works, and the XAML is only going to give you a placeholder, but you do get platform API access. So from your Blazor code, you can tap into a camera or accelerometer or a GPS or your media libraries. All types of APIs are now available to you. So Blazor Hybrid is really meant for web developers who now have a need to support native mobile and desktop apps. But if you are a native developer by profession, then keep doing your native stuff.
I think that's a pretty good summary, Sam. If you're really familiar with CSS and HTML, I think Blazor Hybrid's the way to go. But if you're, like you said, XAML all the way, then MAUI it's at.
Yeah, and speaking of CSS/YAML, you can still style all of your Blazor UI with CSS or less, right? So everything that you do for web also works here. Some of the edge cases are, you saw Ed talk about some of the responsiveness. So we are going to be conscious when the screen dimensions shrink or grow. But some of it, there are differences. On the web, you have media queries. On .NET MAUI, you have APIs that tell you whether, what platform you're on or what's the screen resolution. So some of those adjustments might be up to you, but all of our UI just works. And some of it is going to help you, by default, by adjusting how it renders. Yeah, so we are almost over time here. So I think we want to be conscious of, your time as well. Anytime you're free, come and hang out with us at Code It Live. That's where Ed and me and the rest of the team, we write some code live. And we want to thank you for hanging out for like 2 long hours here with us. Hopefully you see all of the things we are trying to do to make you more productive. Give me one more second here. All right, and quick shout out to all of the folks who are in the back rooms with us, have been answering questions all along. Thank you, because we ride on your shoulders as you create these releases. And thank you to all of you who are using our stuff. Hopefully you see that we are trying to do more every release, trying to make you more productive. And just a big thank you from Ed and me. Come and talk to us anytime, but we appreciate your time and hope you have a great rest of your day. Hope you are successful and productive in building what you're doing, and we are here to help. So with that, thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next webinar.
Take care.